Well, if they yelled Bryan in a room, both of us would turn around. If they said a Bryan with a Y, yeah, both of us would raise our hands. It's Bryan Harden. I'm Bryan Fenley. And on the Onto Something podcast, we're going to tell Bryan Harden's story as far as what he's done in the world of sports, a golf fanatic. This is going to be a story about his life, not just from a professional standpoint. We're going to learn more about his personal side too, which is what I
Ooh,
really love. It's sort of like we're going to take a golf cart and traverse the 18 holes of a golf course that is Bryan Harden's life. How about that? Let's do that. I'm
wow. What an intro. And now I'm excited about traversing these 18 holes. Like, hopefully, not all 18 holes. Hopefully, there's still like nine left to play. But
yes.
we can traverse those holes for sure.
Yeah, let's just say we're midway through the front nine, and you've got so much more in front of you. But again, I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio, and also golf and tennis broadcaster, volleyball as well. And first of all, Bryan, I'm excited. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. Thanks for coming on and making it happen.
No, thanks for having me. I feel pretty honored. The illustrious list of people that you have interviewed, that you have decided that you like to talk to me. Oh,
Well, I got to say, Bryan, there were a lot of people I had to, get the okay from just to get you on. I mean, you're in high demand, which
okay.
is no surprise. And I guess where I wanted to start here is you have this love affair with golf, as
Yeah.
I do. And one of the things that I've noticed about you is how golf has become such a great unifier in your life. How have
Yeah.
you found that to be the case?
I fell in love with golf in 2006. I played all the sports growing up. At some point, my body was like, "You can't do this anymore." I turned to golf, and it has been like amazing. It has provided me with friends. I've got friends that I've met on the golf course through golf. It's provided me with a career. In 2011, I moved from New Orleans to Orlando to work at Golf Channel. It's provided me with a lot of things. Once I moved to Orlando, we decided to settle down, have a family. My son plays golf, so we go play golf together. It's just been one of the mainstays in my life since 2006, honestly. Um, I'm horrible at it. I will say that for everybody watching, all my friends watching, or anybody that knows me, I'm not great at golf. I'll have a few moments out there, but I just love the challenge of golf. And it's almost like a metaphor for life. We don't have to go that deep into it unless you want to, but it is almost like a metaphor for life. You wake up every day with a new challenge. Sometimes you don't get what you want, but you kind of enjoy the journey while you're out there. You breathe in the air and you listen to the birds chirp and all that. And that's kind of the way that I view golf. And I'm very thankful for everything that golf has done for me. Not being a professional golfer or good at golf, but all the things that kind of my love for golf have done for me.
And I love how you described how it's brought you and your son together. And I want to talk about those experiences on the golf course between both of you. But you used the word horrible. Let's not forget that that's sort of relative because you are your harshest critic. Your version of horrible for a lot of golfers out there is like the round of their life. So let's just put that into perspective here. And so you mentioned the Golf Channel, and obviously now you work at NBC Sports Next. Just briefly, this role now, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, before I dive into my role, I'll kind of tell you what NBC Sports Next is. We like to consider ourselves as innovators at the intersection of sports and technology. So we have three verticals. There's a youth and rec sports vertical, there's the golf vertical, and there's a betting and gaming vertical. And pretty much NBC Sports Next focuses on anything that is digital in nature in the NBC Sports Group. So we're talking like all-in-one tech platforms, easy to use mobile apps, then the memberships for people, and some of the brands that you may recognize that kind of sit in this division are Golf Now, Golf Pass, Sports Engine, Go Motion, NBC Sports Edge, NBC Sports Predictor. And more specifically, in my role, I work in the marketing department and the creative team. Um, my group handles the video production aspect of it. So we do anything from like on-air commercials to traditional things you might see as a marketing team does within an organization, sizzle videos, explainer videos, anything video in nature that, you know, these brands need that is not content, that's more like marketing. That's what my team does. And I work with a bunch of wonderful creative people. It's been the best 2 years of my life that I moved over to NBC Sports Next a couple years ago. I've been able to do so many wonderful things and work with my team, who is awesome, super duper creative, and they drive me every day. Um, they're very passionate about what they do, and it all kind of, you know, it's great to be in an environment where everybody's passionate about what they do. It kind of rubs off on you and invigorates you in a way.
If I were to ask your wife, what's the most creative aspect of Bryan Harden? What is she going to say? It could be work. It could be something else.
I, I don't know. I think it would be work. Um, I take great pride in, you know, I don't think I am the most creative person, but I take great pride in the creative that we produce as a team. I love the creative process. Um, I definitely love being creative in the world that I'm in. I've always been fortunate to be in the sports world, and even more specifically, like around the thing that I love. For instance, when I can't got out of college, couple of jobs in, I started working in the NBA for the New Orleans Hornets, and I was around basketball every day. And I love basketball, and I played in leagues, and I did all the stuff, and it was like basketball, 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 video, creating videos about basketball. It was so much fun. Then did a stint in college sports with the local Fox Sports Regional Network. So much fun just to be talking sports every day. Definitely at that time, the Florida teams were doing great. So it was fun to be in that atmosphere. And then around golf every day, the Golf Channel for so long, talking golf, making promos about golf. And then now it's even more exciting because we're working promoting the game and all other sports to the consumer, to the everyday person like me, to the everyday Joe. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think my wife would probably say that, you know, I try to do the most creative things that I do are the things that I do at work. And I love creating videos and content and things out of nothing. There's nothing more exciting than creating something out of
If I was to create a video of what you're like
nothing.
with you and your son out there on the golf course,
Oh my gosh.
what am I going to learn from you that I wouldn't learn if I was a coworker of yours?
Oh man. I didn't know we were gonna talk about this. So so I am definitely have a lot of old sports baggage that I bring with me, but I'm very aware of it. I'm very aware of it, but it just comes out. My son is super duper talented and smart. He's a fun kid. Um, and on the golf course, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Like I can like channel like Earl Wood sometimes, and sometimes I could be on the other side of the spectrum and be like, "Oh man, it's no problem. It's great." Um, and it's just because I have like this love for the game that I'm trying to pass on to him. But I'm very conscious. Um, I want him to experience the game the way he needs to and he wants to. I want to give him all the tools that he can get to enjoy the game as much as possible. But his experience and my experience are two different things. But my ultimate dream in introducing him to the game was to do, you know, the traditional father-son trip somewhere and playing golf and creating a memory for a lifetime. Like it sounds hokey, but the moment I put a club in his hand, it wasn't about him being good at golf or me being good at golf. It was about us kind of experiencing it together and creating a memory somewhere, you know, in the future when he gets old and he can, you know, it's a game for a lifetime. He definitely can continue that game way past my time on this earth, and he could pass it on too.
How close is he to beating you on the golf course?
He's close. He's close. I would probably say he's 8 years old now. I'd probably say at the age 13, with my diminishing skills and his skills that are his skills that are gaining, I think that he would be able to beat me at about age 13.
How
I'm
are you?
excited for that day too. I'm excited for that
Yeah.
day.
What is that day going to look like? How are you? Because as you said, there's the part Earl Woods where you're the go getter, you're the ultra competitor, but then there's the more kind of laid back, go with the flow version of Bryan. So, how, knowing that you're judging both sides of that, of you, what is that day? How are you going to experience that looking ahead?
I'm excited. I remember the day I beat my dad wasn't a golfer, but he was a basketball. Like he loved basketball, and that's where my love of basketball came. And the day I beat him, it was like a monumental day. Like it was it was a big day, and I'm excited for him. Um, but I'm also excited. Like if he's still playing the game at that age, and he can beat me, I have actually done what I set out to do. And then we can go forward and create all these memories on all these golf trips that we're gonna do.
Thinking about that mentality of going out and setting out and doing what you were meant to do, how do you apply that to the way you approach your work?
Yeah. Um, I've been very fortunate, like I kind of said before, to always be around sports and sports that I love. Um, and I made the conscious decision a while back, I think when I was getting out of college, everybody, buddies that weren't in television and weren't in video production, they were moving on to have jobs and do things like that. And it was a very scrappy, like 3 years after I graduated college. But I made the either conscious or subconscious commitment that, hey, look, I wanted to do something in the sports world, and whatever it took, whatever little lowly job I had to do, or whatever, if I didn't couldn't have a job for a while, I was going to do the things that set me up later on in life to be able to be in the sports world. And that's what I did, and I'm happy that initially I didn't kind of settle, um, because it's been just a wonderful experience. I've done things that I never thought I would do, met people that I never thought I would meet, and been around some of the most talented and creative people in the world. So it's just been a wonderful experience.
How much of your fight and fortitude that you exhibited, right, as you mentioned, after college and sort of fighting your way from a metaphorical standpoint in breaking through and getting those opportunities, did you take from your father, the fight and the fortitude
Yeah.
in the way in which he was able to sort of teach you those principles growing up?
Yeah, he was a guy. His favorite phrase was, "I'm never gonna let you quit anything." And he never let me quit anything. Right. So once I started something, I had to follow through. And it's easy. I guess you can get down on yourselves at times. And like I still channel his teachings today, but you can get down on yourselves at times when things aren't going exactly the way that you thought they were gonna go. But I just always had like this dumb um persistence. Even with sports, like I would get cut from a team, or I wouldn't play, but I'd be like, I still love that sport. I really don't care. Like I love doing that, and I'm gonna continue to do it. And he just kind of built up that thick skin that I needed, and this quiet persistence to wake up, still beat the drum every day, and that's kind of how I've fashioned my career. I've never, things haven't happened right away, but I've always just kind of put my head down and continue to fight the fight. And, eventually good things will happen for you.
Good things are happening, and they have, and they will continue to. Bryan Harden is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. What level of thick skin did you have to have when your dad, you and him were playing one-on-one basketball when he would beat you?
So he would beat me, and he would talk trash. And as a kid, and he was an athlete growing up, much better athlete than I ever was. He played football at Grambling, ended up playing baseball at Grambling. He played football in the Eddie Robinson. He played all the rec sports when he got out of college. He played softball, he played basketball, and I really looked up to him on an athletic level. Man, he would rub it in. He wouldn't let me win anything. We play like at a small pool table that we had at our house, and he would just beat the brakes off me all the time and rub it in. But that helped me develop that thick skin. And then finally, if I beat him, he would acknowledge it. But yeah, he definitely helped me have that thick skin that, things aren't going to get handed to you. Things could be rough. Do you really like this? Do you really like this thing? Then keep going with it, type of thing.
And if I'm not mistaken, Bryan, you played some college basketball, right? You
Yeah,
and and then
I yes,
I was going
yes.
to say, in your college, would many years later would go on to win titles. So I'm wondering, like, how much of an impact did you have on those titles? Thinking about it, I know
Uh,
we laugh, but still.
well, I was actually so shout out to Loyola University and the Loyola University Wolfpack. They're an NAIA school in New Orleans. They just won the national championship in basketball um, in 1990. I think 90, gosh, 96 or 90, 97, 98. I played on the team. Um, I didn't have a scholarship. It was one of those dumb things where I'm like, oh, I still want to play basketball. And I had mediocre skills, and they needed somebody to fill out the team. So I kind of worked my way and got on the team. I won't tell you what our record is because I don't want to besmirch the people that I played with, but I will tell you that the amount of minutes that I got my senior year, you could probably count them on one hand. But people still like I still saw myself as a somewhat of a leader, and something people look to me in different respects. Maybe not for the stuff on the court. Maybe it was a morale thing. Maybe it was to keep people up. But I still actually I really took that role seriously. Whatever they needed me to do. If it was a morale thing, I could lift the group. I could be funny. I could, inspire people with a speech every now and then, and I kind of really relished that role. So I did play, but I didn't play a lot. But the story that I like to say is like they won the national championship, but I like to say every brick that I shot up laid the foundation for that. And I shot a lot of bricks too.
Well, and I'm wondering why, because of that, they haven't given you a ring. Now,
Oh
again,
man.
why not? I think about that. And while you, like you said, you might not have had that many minutes on the court, how many minutes were you in a car with Chris Paul?
Oh my gosh. So that is definitely one of the highlights of my career. So when the New Orleans Hornets came, the Charlotte Hornets came to New Orleans in 2002, um, through some dumb persistence, I was able to convince somebody to give me a job as their videographer, uh, doing in-house features, and there was a magazine show at the time. So, that was my job. I was the videographer, the staff videographer. It was a wonderful job. I got to meet so many amazing people. At the time, Willis Reed had a big part in the organization. Over the years, Byron Scott was the coach there, which my dad was a big Lakers fan, and I was a big Bulls fan in '91. So, it was great to like see some of the people that I grew up watching on TV, and I'm actually, right there in the same area as them. And as far as Chris Paul is concerned, so the year he was drafted, they were like, "Hey, we want to do a feature of this first day." So the very first moment of his career as an NBA player, I was in the car with Willis Reed, and Willis Reed and I picked him up from the airport, and I documented the day. And as a sports nerd, something I knew, like, he's obviously going to be a Hall of Famer. Willis Reed was a Hall of Famer. I knew I was like in the midst of something pretty cool. Like he had, you know, a Hall of Famer and a soon to be Hall of Famer. And there I was documenting the whole day. And I was excited about it. Like to me, I was over the roof. And that was just one of the moments, one of the many moments that I remember from my career that I just thought, man, never thought watching TV growing up, I never thought I would actually be here doing this type of thing. It might not seem amazing to a lot of people, but that moment to me was a huge moment.
What conversations were you all having in the car when he got
I,
in?
Yeah, I didn't say very much. I obviously I was holding the camera. I can't even remember honestly anything that was said. But obviously, whenever Mr. Reed talked, people listened. Like he had that type of presence. And whenever he said anything, I kind of sat at the edge of my seat, like, "Ooh, okay." And I go back home and tell my wife, "Mr. Reed said this yesterday. Can you believe that?" So yeah, I don't exactly remember what happened and what was said in that car, but there's a lot of welcome to New Orleans, welcome to the organization, and I think everybody knew that he was going to be a Hall of Famer, and we were excited to see his career unfold.
It's those moments that you don't remember, and me too. We remember how we felt. Like
Yeah,
you knew there
yeah,
was an aura around Chris Paul, and it
yeah,
almost it's sort of it blinds us to what he was saying just because we're in his presence. And we're so
one
taken
thousand
aback
percent.
by that that we
Yeah,
forget what's being said. We just are in awe
yeah.
of being around him. And I guess for you in seeing where your career has taken you from the NBA to golf and now NBC and beyond, where do you note those moments that you can look back now and be in awe of yourself?
Um, there's a lot of moments. Obviously, every time I got a new job and moved to a new place, those were moments that I'm like, okay, you know. Every time I decided to do something different and stretch myself, and whether I was successful at it or not, I saw those as moments. They hired me as a videographer. I begged to be a producer. One, because I thought being a producer was the coolest thing in the world. But two, I just wanted to take more ownership of something. They let me have the title producer. They let me do more than shoot and edit. Let me do the interviews. They let me write. They helped me write some things. Shout out to Steve Martin, who is a legendary broadcaster. He spent most of his time with the Charlotte and New Orleans Hornets, but he was the person that gave me my first opportunity in sports, and it's been a whirlwind ever since. But it's those moments when you move to a different role and you're trying something different, and whether you succeed or not, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to try the thing that I always wanted to do. And I might need to get a little bit better at this. I might need to get a little bit better at that. But those are the specific moments. So every time I moved, every job that I got, I remembered those moments. And then there's also just moments of, you know, when you meet somebody that you always wanted, that you saw on television, or you interview people that you never thought you were going to interview. I had a chance when Florida was doing really well here at Fox Sports Florida in Orlando. I got a chance to interview like Urban Meyer and Bobby Bowden and Billy Donovan and a lot of the players that won. I got a lot of opportunities to do things and be around. I went to the national championship game in '08. I was stuck in a truck somewhere, and I only went on the field at the end to do some post game interviews. I hold the mic for somebody doing some post game interviews, but I was there, like confetti. I remember all those moments of confetti flying on my head when Florida won the national championship. Um, Another monumental moment in my life was Hurricane Katrina. I was with the team in New Orleans. The team moved to Oklahoma, and I was able to move with the team in Oklahoma and continue my career while I dealt with one of the biggest like tragedies in my life that turned out to be something good. But at the time, it was a huge thing. But I was able to continue work and continue my career at that during that time. So yeah, those are like the moments that I remember. It's the new job, it's the new experience, it's the people that you never thought you were going to interview. Um, and sometimes it's the failures, and then sometimes it's like, oh, I aced that type of thing.
What was the turnaround for you when Katrina happened and you were looking at it as it's so devastating for so many in your region from, from a family perspective and from a work perspective? And then how did you take that adversity and, like I said, yeah, turn it around and find that way to come out on top?
Yeah, just the dumb persistence. I mean, I got to be honest with you. Like there was a lot of horrible experience. I knew a lot of friends that went through much worse than I did. So I was very fortunate, very blessed to come out the way that I did. I retained my job. They moved me to a new location. I was able to fix up my house, and I owned a house at the time, and then sell it. So things, and then eventually, probably like a year later, because I was in Oklahoma, I met somebody else to help me get another job. So I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was super duper blessed and fortunate that my experience through Katrina was not as horrific as some of the things that I saw people that I know went through. I evacuated to Houston, my hometown, spent a lot of time with family all over the country for a while, just waiting for things and waiting for things to subside. So like for at least 2 months, we were just traveling and seeing people. And that's kind of how things went for me with Hurricane Katrina.
Having that family, you mentioned persistence. I'm sure there was a lot of patience that had to come during those times as well. And then you ride that persistence. I want to leave you with this last question. Bryan Harden is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. What is your best performance on a golf hole?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I've holed out for eagle a couple times, which has been really cool. From the fairway, you hit a ball and you think it's tracking, and then you walk up there and like, oh, it went in. Never had a hole in one, but I've holed out for eagle, and those are amazing. I've done it twice. You would think I'd have more stories to tell in the golf world, the golf space, but holding out in any form of fashion was pretty cool. I'll tell you something. I played in a charity event, and it was a pro am, but I did not know that it was like the pros were playing that day. Like they were playing, they were recording a score, and I was like three pros and one am, and I was the am. That particular day, I got on to I-4, and I don't know if you know anything about I-4 traffic here in Orlando, but it's hit or miss. That day, I got like on the entrance, and I got about by downtown, and traffic stopped. I had planned to get there early, hit a few balls, be nice and comfortable and relaxed, and when I'm playing in front of these professionals, I won't look silly type of thing. Had it all planned out, but basically I arrived 5 minutes before the tee time. So much so they're like, Mr. Harden, you're on the tee box. I was the very first tee time. Mr. Harden, you're on the tee box. So, I got it all together and I was able to hit, a little something down the fairway. After they called my name, that was a pretty monumental moment in my golf career. Here we are in a professional event. I am the am. I'm coming in cold turkey, coming in hot, and I was able to just hit the ball on the fairway. That was, and this will tell you how good I am at golf if that's like one of my best memories.
Well, it's you booming a drive down the middle of the fairway and then you mentioning multiple eagles. I go back to the word in which you described your game as horrible. Nothing
No,
of what you just
no.
mentioned is horrible, which I think
Well,
goes to how humble you are.
yeah.
I
Well,
think that's what it stems from.
let's put it all in context. Like when I moved to work at Golf Channel, and there are people who have played golf at this place and still here at NBC Sports Next who've played golf their whole life, and they are really good at golf. Uh, so there's levels, right? I'll tell you right now, I'm an 11 handicap, which is not great. It's not horrible. It's right there in the middle. It's enjoyable to be able to play the game and not practice and not have any expectations. And that's kind of what you have at 11. Like some days you'll go out and it'll be great. Some days you go out and you're like, yeah, but I just play once a week. I'm an 11 handicap. So there are levels to this. And when I came to Golf Channel, when I came to Orlando, I learned the levels. There's some really good golfers in this. We're talking scratch +2, +1, used to play on the mini tours type of thing. So, like you said, it's all relative. But I definitely learned the next two levels up for me when I started working here.
So Bryan Harden might be up and down on the golf course, but the man, when it comes to work, It's just straight clutch. Bryan Harden, I'm Bryan Fenley. Bryan, of course, creative director, on air, video production, NBC Sports Next. I'm with Fox Sports Radio. Also do some golf stuff as well. Bryan, thanks so much for doing this. This was a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully, I provided something that'll help somebody
Yes.
along the way. If not, maybe it was entertaining. And shout out to all the people who gave me opportunities in my career. There's so many people to name, but I definitely wanted to shout out Steve Martin, who I mentioned before, who gave me my first opportunity in sports, because he kind of opened the door for me. I don't know if he knows it, but he did. And without him kind of taking my resume tape, which was a VHS at the time, and my resume that looked like nothing, he was able to kind of enter me into this world that I've just enjoyed so much. So shout out to Steve Martin, the legendary broadcaster.